Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into another fascinating book.
Definitely. Always exciting to explore these big ideas.
This time we're tackling Yuval Noah Harari's *Sapiens*, a real deep dive into the entire history of humankind.
Sounds ambitious.
It is. But we're going to pull out the most interesting bits so you can walk away with a better understanding of Homo sapiens, both our past and maybe even our future.
I like it. Always good to know where we come from.
Right. So let's kick things off with a bit of a mind bender. You know how we think of ourselves as the only humans, right? Well, Homo sapiens actually weren't alone for a big chunk of our history.
Yeah, we shared the planet with other human species like Neanderthals for quite a long time, actually.
Neanderthals. Wow. Imagine running into one of those at the grocery store. I wonder, did we get along with our Neanderthal neighbors, or was it more like, rivals?
Well, that's a big debate among anthropologists. There's this theory called the interbreeding theory, where sapiens and Neanderthals actually interbred, eventually merging into a single population. And there's evidence for this, too. Yeah. A 2010 study blew everyone's minds. They found that people of Eurasian descent, like me, and probably you, carry about 4% Neanderthal DNA. So you might have a little Neanderthal in you.
Whoa. No way. Okay, but if we were interbreeding, why didn't Neanderthals survive as like a separate species then?
Right, good question. Well, there's another theory called the replacement theory. And that one suggests that sapiens and Neanderthals were just too different to coexist peacefully. Maybe through conflict or competition for resources, sapiens, just replaced them.
Replaced them, like outcompeted them.
Exactly. And this is where Harari's ideas get really interesting. He thinks our ability to communicate, like our complex language skills, might have given us that edge.
So like more than just, pointing at a tree and grunting food.
Right, much more than that.
Yeah.
Sapiens could share complex thoughts, build trust and relationships, gossip a little.
Wait, gossip? Seriously, like talking about who was hooking up with whom back in the caveman days?
Well, maybe. But think about it. It all boils down to social cooperation. Being able to share stories, build reputations, all that was crucial for sapiens to work together in larger numbers than other human species.
I guess I never thought about it like that. So instead of just grunting, lion, run, our ancestors could weave these elaborate narratives about who was brave, who was lazy, all that jazz.
Exactly. And this ability to create what Harari calls imagined orders is what really sets sapiens apart.
Imagined orders. Okay, I'm intrigued. Break that down for me.
Well, think about things like religion, nations, legal systems, money even. They don't exist in the physical world like a tree or a rock. They exist because we collectively agree that they do. They're shared myths.
Oh, I see what you mean. So like money, it's just paper, but we all believe it has value, so it works. So you're saying these imagined orders, these shared beliefs, allowed sapiens to cooperate on a massive scale.
Precisely. It's what allowed us to build cities, create complex societies, all things those other human species couldn't quite manage. It's one of the reasons we're here, and they're not.
Wow, that's kind of mind-blowing. So these imagined orders, even though they're not real in a physical sense, they're incredibly powerful. Can you give me a specific example of how one of these early imagined orders worked?
Sure. Think about Hammurabi's Code, one of the first sets of written laws from ancient Babylon. It created a strict social hierarchy, dividing people into superiors, commoners, slaves.
A pecking order.
Exactly. And this pecking order wasn't based on any real biological differences, but because people believed in this system, it shaped every part of their lives.
Wow. I guess we still live with these imagined orders today, right? Money,
Yeah.
corporations, human rights, all of these things only exist because we agree they do.
Absolutely. It's part of what makes sapiens so unique. But this ability to create these shared myths didn't just impact our social structures. It also played a huge role in, get this, the agricultural revolution.
Agricultural revolution, yeah, that's when we figured out farming and settled down right. Seems like a pretty good deal to me.
Yeah, well, Harari has this totally different perspective. He argues that instead of humans domesticating wheat actually domesticated us.
Wait, what? Wheat domesticated us? What do you mean by that?
Well, by settling down to farm, we basically became tied to a single location and a single food source, making us vulnerable to famine and disease. We actually ended up working longer hours too.
So all those hunter-gatherers running around, maybe they had it better than we thought.
Well, there's this idea of the original affluent society, which suggests that hunter-gatherers may have actually had a better quality of life, more leisure time, fewer health problems.
Really? Interesting. But I guess life for them was still pretty tough, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. But Harari's point is that we need to question this idea that agriculture was this purely positive advancement. It had huge consequences and maybe even some downsides. Things weren't always better just because they were new.
Yeah, that's true. And that's all just the beginning. We're barely scratching the surface of Harari's big ideas.
Definitely. And next time, we'll pick up the story and explore how we went from farming villages to empires, money, and even universal religions.
It's all connected. Can't wait to dive back in. See you next time, everyone.
Okay, so last time we left off with the agricultural revolution.
Yeah.
Huge change for humanity. But as we were saying, maybe not all sunshine and roses.
Yeah, definitely made you think twice about those hunter-gatherer ancestors. But Harari doesn't stop there. He connects all this to another major turning point, the scientific revolution.
Yeah, the scientific revolution, that's a fascinating one. It really changed how Homo sapiens approached knowledge, how we understood the world. For most of history, we relied on tradition, religious beliefs, what the authorities told us.
Basically, don't question anything, just accept it.
Pretty much. But then around the 16th century, things started to shift. People began to question those old assumptions.
So what happened? What sparked that change?
It's interesting, Europe in 1500 wasn't exactly the center of the world. Compared to like the empires in the East, it was kind of a backwater. But a new way of thinking was brewing.
A new way of thinking.
Yeah, people like Copernicus, Galileo, they started to emphasize observation, using math, and this idea that we can actually make progress through inquiry and experimentation.
So instead of just blindly accepting what they were told, they said, hey, let's figure this out for ourselves.
Exactly. It's all about testing, questioning, constantly revising our understanding. And it led to some amazing breakthroughs in astronomy, physics, medicine, you name it.
It's like the foundation of modern science as we know it. That's pretty incredible. But wasn't there a downside too? Didn't all this new knowledge lead to, well, some not so great stuff?
Yeah, that's important to remember. You can't separate scientific progress from the context of history. This is also the age of exploration, colonization, and unfortunately a lot of that was fueled by science, especially advances in navigation and map making.
I see what you mean, like James Cook. He was an amazing explorer, right? Mapped huge parts of the Pacific, even discovered a cure for scurvy. But his voyages also paved the way for British colonization, which wasn't exactly a good thing for the native populations.
Yeah, like the Tasmanians. Tragic story. It's a reminder that scientific knowledge, even with the best intentions, can have unintended consequences.
So it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Progress can come with a cost.
Absolutely. We have to be mindful of that, especially as we continue to make new discoveries and develop new technologies.
Okay, so the scientific revolution totally changed how we see the world. But how does this connect to, the modern world? I mean, how do we get from telescopes and maps to, like, smartphones and the internet?
Well, this is where Harari brings it all together. He argues that the scientific revolution actually laid the groundwork for the rise of capitalism and the Industrial Revolution.
Really? How so?
Well, think about the core principles of capitalism. Growth, reinvestment of profits, constant innovation. It's all about pushing boundaries, just like the scientists of that era.
Huh. I never thought about it like that. So just like scientists were challenging old ways of thinking about the natural world, capitalists were like, hey, let's rethink the whole economic system.
Exactly. And they did. The Industrial Revolution, with all its factories, machines, mass production, that grew directly out of this new mindset.
It's crazy to think about how much our world changed because of these new ideas. But I'm guessing there were some, let's say, growing pains along the way.
Oh, definitely. We saw a huge increase in wealth and technological advancement, but also exploitation of workers, environmental damage, the problems that come with rapid change.
So again, progress but at a cost. It seems like a recurring theme.
It is. And it makes you wonder, are we repeating those same patterns today?
Right. With all the talk about AI, bioengineering, it feels like we're on the verge of another massive shift.
We are. And that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah. Next time we'll dive into all that. The crazy possibilities and maybe even some scary ones.
Definitely a lot to unpack. Should be a fascinating conversation. See you then.
So where were we? Oh yeah, all this mind-blowing stuff about the future of humanity, AI, bioengineering. Kind of scary, kind of exciting.
It is. And it brings us to one of the deepest questions in Sapiens. What happens to the meaning of life when humans aren't necessarily the dominant force anymore?
Whoa, yeah, I mean, forever we've looked for meaning in things like religion, art, relationships. But what if, what it even means to be human is changing?
Right. It's a huge shift. Harari argues that for a long time, the meaning of life was shaped by our limitations, like our
Exactly.
mortality. We're going to die someday. And knowing that influenced our values, what we thought was important.
It's true, we've always tried to overcome those limits. We built houses to stay safe, invented medicine to stay healthy. But what happens if we eliminate those limitations? What happens if we can live way longer or even, not die at all?
That's the big question. What happens to the things that used to give our lives meaning?
Exactly. What are we striving for then? If we're not worried about basic survival, if we can upgrade our brains and bodies, what's the point of it all?
Harari talks about a few different scenarios. One is that we might become super focused on individual happiness.
Hmm.
Maybe we create these perfect virtual worlds, chase constant stimulation.
Kind of like a never-ending party. Sounds fun at first, but wouldn't that get old? Is that really what life is all about?
That's the thing. Harari suggests this pursuit of pleasure, even if it's constant, might lead to boredom, a feeling of emptiness. If you're always chasing the next high, maybe you miss out on what really matters.
I see what you mean. So maybe endless pleasure isn't the answer. What else is there? How else could we find meaning if all those old ideas become irrelevant?
Harari suggests we might need to connect with something bigger than ourselves, like a new form of spirituality, a deeper understanding of the universe. Maybe even, and this is wild, merging with AI into some kind of collective consciousness.
Well, hold on, merging with AI, like becoming one with the machines.
Yeah, it's out there. But think about it. Instead of being stuck in our individual little worlds, we could be part of something much greater, something that can comprehend things we can't even imagine right now.
It's kind of like leveling up our spirituality through technology. I like that. But Harari also mentions this other idea, right? Dataism.
Yes, dataism.
Yeah.
This is a bit more abstract. The idea is that fundamentally, the universe is just information. And consciousness, whether it's ours or some super intelligent AI, is just a way for that information to process itself.
So it's like instead of gods or nations or even happiness, it's all about data. We're just tiny parts of this giant cosmic computer.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And the goal, according to dataism, is to maximize the flow of information. It's a pretty different way of looking at things.
It really is. I mean, where do humans even fit into that picture? Do we even matter?
That's the million-dollar question. Are we just cogs in the machine, or can we find new ways to be creative, compassionate, everything that makes us human within this new framework?
Whoa, heavy stuff. I need a minute to process all this.
Me too. It's a lot to wrap your head around. We started with hunter-gatherers, and now we're talking about merging with AI. Harari really takes us on a wild ride.
He does. But that's what makes Sapiens so amazing. It forces you to think about the big picture, to question everything you thought you knew.
Exactly. And in the end, he doesn't give us all the answers, but he leaves us with this really important message. The future isn't set in stone. We have a choice in how it unfolds.
So it's up to us to figure out what kind of future we want. No pressure, right?
Right? But hey, that's what makes it exciting. We can use our knowledge, our creativity to build something amazing.
Well said. So that's our deep dive into Sapiens, a whirlwind tour of human history and a glimpse into the incredible and maybe even terrifying possibilities that lie ahead. We hope you enjoyed the ride. What do you think? What kind of future are we creating? Let us know. Thanks for listening.